Well, finally we've got a nice afternoon, and I thought I'd take just a couple of hours to make up some rigs for matches that I've got coming up. And we've hopefully got a Y League this Sunday, so I thought I'd just take the time to show you some rigs that have been working well for me on recent Y matches. So the first rig is a stick float rig, and this is a heavy base stick float. These are the number 2 dome top versions from Dave Harrell's range, and it's not a stick float that I use very often, but it's one that is really useful to have in your armoury. You can see here they've got a nice dome top. They've got a very heavy wire stem which enables you to cast the floats really easily, and I really like fishing these floats in situations where I want to fish out from the bank. On the last day of the festival a couple of weeks ago, I drew on peg 73 on the railings, and this was the float I used. I used a 10 number 4 version with number 8s shot in the rig up, which I'll show you, and basically it enabled me to be able to fish down the middle of the river, and I think offer better presentation over perhaps a bollo. So yeah, check out these floats. I think they're really useful, and I'll try and show you the rig. So the rig itself, as I've mentioned in previous videos about my stick float rigs, is constructed using lead number 8s. So I've used our edge tackle number 8s, and this is a 10 number 4 float. And basically what I've done is I've used small bulks of number 8 lead shot, so 4 together, 4 together, 4 together, 4 together, down through the rig, down to the bottom where I've changed to 3 number 8s and then 2 number 8s, 2 number 8s, 2 number 8s. The rig that I've actually used, the line, is our 018 edge tackle fluorocarbon, and I think I mentioned it when I was talking about bollos in a video recently. I like to use fluorocarbon as a rig line when I'm fishing with bollos and sticks, because fluorocarbon's stiffer, so you tend to get less tangles. And as you can see, the way I've shotted these onto the line, I can move them about no problem at all without damaging the line. And using lots of number 8 shots like this enables you to be very versatile with your rig. So I can spread them out like this, or I can bolt them down if I want. And also, because you're using lots of shot, it goes against what you think, you tend to get less tangles. So what I've done here is that's set quite deep. That's set around about 14 foot deep. And on this rig here, I don't know if you can see it, but I've joined the rig to my main line, which is actually 018 float mono, so edge tackle float mono, which is a really robust, reliable line that's lovely and supple. It's also robust, so I'm using 018, which is, I think that's £5, because obviously on matches on the Y where you're catching hopefully a good amount of fish, that's going to be a very reliable main line. And there's the float. So I've got the float, I've got a rubber on the top, and then I've got 2 rubbers, one on the middle of the stem and one on the bottom, and you can see I'm overlapping that rubber there. That again just helps prevent tangles. If you had the edge of the wire sticking out, sometimes the float can flip over. But yeah, that's a really useful rig to have in your armoury. Hook length material was 015 edge tackle premium mono, quite a long hook length. I don't know, it's got to be 18 inches long, and the hook was a Census 3180 size 14. And on the day I managed to catch 53 pounder chub, basically loose feeding maggots and bits of meat, and switching between maggot hook bait and meat on the hook. So that was a really good float, and then proved to be an enjoyable day. Actually, Tom Scully was there filming for Catch More Media, and there's a clip that I shared on our Edge Tackle Facebook page just showing me catch a couple of chub. So I thought that was an interesting rig to share with you. Then the other rig is a reverse sort of, I don't know what you call it really. like a specie type Waggler. Again, this is a float that I don't tend to use very often. I've just hooked myself. And I carry these in weights from sort of 2 swan up to 5 swan. These are old Shakespeare Super Team versions, but I'm pretty sure Dave does a similar version. So you can see they're made from balsa and they've got a tapered design. So from the bottom of the float up, you've got, it's a kind of truncheon waggler. So it looks a bit like a truncheon. And the great advantage of these is being balsa, they take a lot of weight. So on days when you want to fish, again, out perhaps down the middle or past the middle of the river with a positive rig, maybe there's some water on, you're fishing a deeper peg, this type of float really comes into its own. So I'll show you how I shotted it up. And this is quite interesting actually. One of my teammates put me onto the Drennan float shots. I'll show you what I mean. So I've shotted this float up with these Waggler weights from Drennan, 1.25 gram, and trapped them with our edge tackle oval medium line stop. So I'll just show you what I mean. So you can see there, obviously I've got my Waggler attachment there to enable me to change the float if I need to. And then I've got those Waggler weights to either side of the float, stopping them with our line float stops. So what it means is, because this float obviously takes a big capacity, this one's a 3 swan, I can move these Waggler weights so easily without damaging the line. The line stops grip on very nicely onto the main line, and it's just a really neat way of fishing a Waggler, particularly a big Waggler like this where you're going to be using bigger shot. I'll still use big non-toxic split shot, but I think in this situation I've really got to like these Waggler weights. Down the line, very, very simple. Again, I've used lead number 8s. So I've got 2 number 8s, 2 number 8s, 2 number 8s, 2 number 8s, 2 number 8s. And obviously that's a very versatile rig as well. So I can bulk down if I need to, I can spread it out. And this type of float's really, really versatile, very useful for fishing on the drop, when you want a different type of presentation over perhaps a heavier stick float or a bolo, and also when you're dragging line on the bottom. So on the Wye Champs, I drew down on the carrot section, and it was quite a challenging day. It was a shallowish peg and there was some water on, and I tried different rigs, fished a feeder, didn't catch anything for probably 2 hours, but with constant feeding I finally started to catch some chub, and this was by far the best rig. The depth was nothing like this. The depth was probably only about 4 foot, so I'll try and recreate the rig I was using that day. So obviously you can see how easy it is to move that float down without damaging the main line. The main line incidentally is the same as on the stick, so it's our 0.18 or 5 pound edge tackle float mono. And basically I was just fishing with something like that down the line. So I'd got 2 number 8s, 2 number 8s, 2 number 8s, a nice long hook length, and I was fishing it at times probably 2 foot over depth. And to start with, I fished with this 3 swan float, and then when I really wanted to drag line on the bottom, I just switched it over to 4 swan, and I didn't change the shot in any way. I just simply changed the float, and that enabled me to drag loads of line on the bottom. Just happened to be the sort of presentation that really worked well for me on that day, and I ended up with something like 30, I think I had 38 pounder chub, quite big chub up to 4 pound, and I managed to win my section with that. So turned quite a challenging day into a really enjoyable day again. So that's just another rig to consider when you're fishing on big rivers like the Wye. Incidentally, the gear in terms of the rod and reel I've been using, on the Waggler I was using our 14-foot number 3 match rod. Obviously got a lot of power, lovely progressive action, so you can play the fish with real confidence and, you know, a lot of power. The reels are CS10 4000, and I referenced the main line, which was the 5-pound edge tackle float mono, and again I was using an 0.15mm premium mono hook length. And I'll just show you those. So that's the float mono that I was using, 5-pound with a diameter of 0.18, and that's the premium mono with a diameter of 0.15 and 4.3-pound breaking strain. So you've got to have some pretty heavy tackle, but not too heavy to sort of jeopardize getting bites, but you need something that's going to be really robust and take the punishment of hopefully catching a lot of hard fighting fish like chub. And I just thought I'd finish with showing you a really good tip that's done well for me over the years. Sometimes when you are catching lots of fish and perhaps you start bumping fish and you think, oh, the hook's gone blunt. A lot of the time it isn't. A lot of the time it's the barb, the micro barb, if you're using a micro barb, has lifted up as you've been unhooking the fish, and therefore the hook's not penetrating properly. So all I do is I just get my style pincers. I'm a bit old school, I still carry some style pincers because I like to use styles occasionally, and then just squeeze the barb back down again, and you'll often get another lease of life out of your hook, out of your hook, without needing to change it. So there you go, that's just a quick tip. Hopefully we get on the Wye this weekend on the Winter League. Any of the products that you're interested in, check them out on our Cadence website and also on our Edge Tackle website. Thanks a lot.